Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video you're going to learn a strategic brand design process that will help you to build brands more efficiently and also help you to document the processes that will become your future design business. Now, most freelance designers, when they get into freelance for the first time, they wing it in terms of their processes, and that's certainly something that I did for the first couple of years. When I had a design project, I would just jump straight into it and I wouldn't have any set system. Now, I knew what I was doing and I knew how to design my logos or my brochures, but I wasn't following any kind of process. And then after around about the second year, I realized that I really wasn't moving the needle in my business. So I started to ask some questions about, okay, well, what do I need to do? And the first thing that I came up with was that I needed to start documenting my processes. So that's what I want to jump into today. The first area that I started with when it came to documenting my processes was within my strategic brand design. So I want to go through my design processes today, and that will help you to think about your own processes and then to start thinking on a larger scale about your own business and about the processes as a whole within your business. Step number one, review your strategy. Now, if you're building a strategic brand, you will have built your brand strategy by the time you get to designing your brand. So you want to review your brand strategy as a whole. So you want to look at all of the strategic branding elements, everything from who your audience is to who your competitors are, the position that you're taking in the market, and then of course your human brand persona and the characteristics that you've defined that you want your brand to display. Now, these characteristics are key here when it comes to designing strategically. As designers, as brand designers, we're able to express a message within the visuals that we design, and what we need to be focusing on and what we need to be prioritizing for a strategic brand are the characteristics that we've defined within the brand strategy that we want the audience to understand about our brand, that we want our audience to see that our brand has. So that is the first point. You need to review that strategy. You need to have a look at all of those strategic elements and make sure that you're injecting those characteristics into your visual designs. Now, at the very least, even if you're not developing brand strategies at this point, you need to be thinking on a strategic level in terms of your creative thinking. So you need to, at the very minimum, understand who your audience is and understand your competitors, and that will really set the tone and give you some tools to work with when it comes to designing your logos. Number two, review the brief. Now, your brand strategy and your strategic thinking will come directly from the brief itself, and you'll have gone through that discovery session and you'll have gone through that brand strategy session, or maybe even a brand strategy workshop, to really crystallize the ideas here and gather the information from the client. But before you jump into the design process, even if you have taken the time to develop a brand strategy, you want to review that brief again. The brand strategy process itself can go on for quite a while, and by the time it comes to designing your brand, you may have forgotten some key decisions or some key conversations that you had with your client. So make sure you review that brief and look for specifics within that brief. Look for specific requests from the client or specific conversations that you've had with them. Number three, perform your design research. Now, if you do have your brand strategy at hand, this is where you need to go to. And what you're looking for here is you're looking for keywords. Now, you'll find keywords everywhere throughout the work you'll have done up until this point. Every conversation that you've had with your client, any strategic work that you've done, anything got to do with your audience or your competitors or the position that you're going to take in the market or that brand personality, tone of voice, your brand message or your story, all of these brand strategy elements are going to have some keywords here. And what you want to do is start to gather those and to collect them within a master keyword document. So just create a spreadsheet and start collecting all of those keywords. And essentially what those keywords are the raw materials of your brand design. Now, you want to gather as many keywords as possible and then categorize those keywords into lists. But then you want to start expanding on those keywords with word association. And a very good tool to use here is Power Thesaurus. So powerthesaurus.com, and just start taking those keywords and popping them into Power Thesaurus and really start to expand your keyword list here. So what you're looking for in this case are synonyms and ideas to expand those original keywords. Now, once you're finished with that, you can take that even a step further and start mind mapping or word mapping your keywords. So take the most relevant keywords and put them onto a blank document, and then just start branching out from that in terms of keyword associations. And this is a very, very useful technique because you can come up with keywords that you wouldn't have found through the power thesaurus method or just from your brainstorming. So really think about pushing out the keyword list here and really go as far as you can with that list. Number 4, brainstorm. So you've got an exhaustive list of keywords now, and what you want to do now is really start to think about bringing your idea to life visually. Now, I'm not talking here yet about thumbnailing. You'll get to that later on. Really what you want to do is start visualizing your idea in terms of words. So start thinking about what does it look like physically? What does it feel like emotionally? How would you describe it? So really brainstorm your ideas here and really push them out in terms of explaining what it will look like. You'll get to bringing those visuals to life later on with your thumbnailing and with your illustrations, but for the moment keep it within words and really just push the idea in terms of how you're thinking about what that brand is going to look like visually. Number 5, create mood boards. Now this is the next step in really bringing that idea to life visually, and again, remember the key in terms of designing a brand strategically. What we really need to communicate to our audience are the characteristics that we've defined within the brand strategy that we want them to understand about our brand. So whether we're going to be gritty or tough or professional or clean or elegant or organic, whatever the idea is, whatever the characteristics that we've defined within our brand strategy, that is what we need to communicate visually. And mood boards are a really good way to help us to really put those initial ideas together. So here we want to mood board everything. We want to mood board the color palette, the typography, the style of the logo, the human brand persona, the image style. So really capture a mood board for each that's really going to solidify that look of the visual. And then when you're done with capturing a mood board for each and every one of those strategic elements, then capture a master mood board as to the visuals that will best represent the idea of our visual brand. Number 6, thumbnail and conceptualize. Now, this is my favorite part of brand design. It's brand design at its rawest for me. And you know, when I first got into freelancing and I didn't have any of my processes, this is the area that I would spend most time on because I just enjoyed it, and I would sit there for hours and hours on end regardless of the budget that had been allocated to the job. But you really need to think about your processes here, because if it is something that you enjoy like I enjoyed, then you can waste a lot of time or invest a lot of time when not enough budget has been invested in you. So what you want to do here is you want to take a series of pages, maybe 4 pages, and grid those pages so you've got a series of boxes, and then use a stopwatch. Keep an eye on the time that you've got and really push the ideas here. You'll probably have 2 or 3 really good ideas that came up in your mind as you were doing the strategic work, and they've probably been marinating in your head, and if you're not careful you can get stuck on those. So get them out early and then just move on quickly. Just keep going, just keep pushing the envelope. Don't stick on that original idea, and make sure you get as many out as possible here. And as I said, use that stopwatch and make sure you keep an eye on that time. Don't allow yourself too long here. If you put yourself under a bit of pressure with the stopwatch, then you're forced to really move on quickly and get as many ideas out as possible. So again, make sure when it comes to your processes here that this is not something that you're doing out of enjoyment. It's part of your business, it's part of what you're doing as a service to your clients, and you really want to document that time. Number 7, digitalize your best ideas. Now, by the time you're done thumbnailing, you should have at least 2 to 3 ideas that can form the foundation of your potential visual brand. Now, if you don't have at least 2 or 3 solid ideas, give a little bit more time to your thumbnailing and go back and draw up some more grids, get the stopwatch out again, and really try to push some more ideas out. But what you want to do before you move on to the screen is have some solid ideas in place. If you jump on that screen too early, if you go on that screen before you have a clear idea of what you're trying to design, then you're going to end up pushing pixels around your screen, and that is an absolute time killer. So make sure before you jump onto the screen that you're starting with a good foundation of 2 to 3 solid ideas, and then bring them onto your screen. And here it's all about polishing. It's not about coming up with new ideas. If you feel that you need to come up with new ideas, pick up the pen and paper again and go back to the thumbnailing. But here it's about polishing. It's about playing with those corners, with those edges, with those shapes, and really trying to bring some new ideas and, to really push the original idea out into a visual brand that you could potentially be proud of. So again, make sure that you have some solid ideas before moving onto the screen. And if you need to come up with some fresh ideas, go back to the pen and paper. Number 8, typography time. Now, I've seen inexperienced designers do this time and again, and it's actually something that I used to do early on in my freelance career. They spend 90 to 95% of their time on the actual graphic itself. So that is the logo, the shape, how it looks. And then when it comes to the typography, they'll grab whatever the business name is, put it below the shape, and then they'll select from their list of pre-existing fonts that is in their database, and they'll come up with 3 variations, and that's it. That's the only time they'll spend on typography. But the more I learned about strategic branding, the more I realized that typography plays a huge role when it comes to communicating specific characteristics, because typography already has predetermined characteristics through their designs. The designers that took the time to design these typefaces design characteristics within them, and you need to understand what those characteristics are being communicated and then align those characteristics with the characteristics that you've determined within your brand strategy. So take a lot more time, actually allocate a certain amount of time for typography, and go out and do a bit of research. Really go further than just selecting the type from your database, and really identify the characteristics that you want to define, that you want to display from your typography, from your overall brand, but then identify those characteristics within your typography. So again, spend a bit more time, allocate a specific amount of time for typography, and you'll find that by the end result, you will have a brand identity that is more aligned with those characteristics that you've determined within your brand strategy. Number 9, strategic color selection. Now, the work that we do with color tends to be pretty intuitive because we all have this innate understanding of color, and that's due to our relationship with color from nature. So we know that grass is green, it's earthy, it's healthy. We know that water is cool, so we know that that's what it communicates calm. So we've got all these intuitive understandings about color, but it's really important to understand the deep psychology behind color and what variations of colors make people feel, and then align that with what you want your audience to feel, determined from within your brand strategy. So really take the time to understand the psychology behind color and go a little bit deeper than just grabbing a few colors and deciding which color palette that you like. And then that will go further into the conversations that you have with your client when talking about the strategic colors that you've put in front of them. You can have a conversation about what that communicates on a psychological level. Number 10, step back and become an art director. Now, when I was in my agency roles, I always had an art director who would review my work and then give me a couple of pointers as to where I need to improve, or to tell me it was crap and to go back to the drawing board. But when you become a freelance designer, you don't have that. And what tends to happen is you design the way you would normally design, and then there is no filter at the end of that. That goes directly to the client. But you really want to take a step back here and learn to criticize your own work. Put ego to the side and really play devil's advocate here and look at your design work and ask yourself, what's the worst thing that somebody could say about this design? It's when you take a step back and you become that art director, you can really improve your designs on the whole, but it really does provide an important filter before you start sending content out to the client. So really learn to take a step back, to put your ego to the side, play devil's advocate, and really point the finger and try to point out what's wrong with your designs, and then that will help you to go back and really polish them and push them to the next level. And number 11, review your strategy and your brief. So you want to go back and have a look at that strategy. You want to go back and have a look at that brief before you send anything off to the client. You want to make sure that the brand that the client has asked for, or that the brand that you've determined within your strategy, maybe you'll have ironed some differences out between the brief and the strategy in the early parts of the brand development, that it's aligned with the final visual brand that you've identified, that those characteristics that you've identified early that you want your brand to communicate are being communicated through your visual design. So really take that time to review that strategy document, to review that brief, and make sure that the work that you're putting in front of your client is based on what you've determined that you want your audience to understand. It's based on those characteristics. It's based on that message that you want to tell your audience. Now, most designers wing it when they go into freelance for themselves for the first time, and they design exactly how they would have done in their previous roles. But when you start to understand brand strategy and when you start to understand strategic design, it becomes apparent that you need to include a lot within the design of your brand. You need to include those characteristics. You need to communicate everything that you've defined within those strategic branding elements within your visuals. So it's really important to have those processes. And again, if you want to grow a business, then your processes are the bread and butter of your business. If you don't have processes in place, then you're going to have nothing to hand over to anybody that you bring in. Or if you wanted to sell your business at a later date, if you wanted to build a business that you could sell, well, those processes are what they will look at the end of the day. So start building them now. Start looking at your design processes and documenting. Now, your design process might be different to mine. Chances are they will be, because if there's one thing I know about designers is that we're all different and we all work differently as well. So your processes might be different to mine, but regardless, whether they're different to mine or whether they're the same, or whether you want to take my processes into your own business here, start to document your processes so you can start to build on those. You can start to really start to build a framework around the business that you're building, so that later on you'll have something to hand to somebody coming in to help you. And as I said, this will be the foundation of your future business. Now, if you have a strategic brand design process that I have not included within this list, then please let me know in the comments below. I love to hear different designers' processes, and I'm always on the lookout for something that I can use to improve my own processes. But if you've got any questions or any challenges at all, please let me know in the comments box below as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Or if you want exclusive tips like this, well then head on over to BrandMasterAcademy.com and sign up for the newsletter. It is free, and I will drop those techniques right into your inbox, and I do keep some exclusive content for that list. But again, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you've got any challenges in the box below. I'll do my best to answer all of those questions. Until next time, please brand like a master, and I will see you in the next video.